Okay. I've gotten a lot of shit from the rest of the online left for my criticism of those that I like to call Wokescolds. And there's a reason why I use this term. A lot of people actually misunderstand what I mean when I say Wokescold. They think I mean someone who is left-leaning or woke that criticizes other left-leaning people for not being woke enough. And that can apply to some people that I would call woke scolds, but it's not my actual definition. For well over a year now, I have had a definition of woke scold that I want to see catch on more. I know it's caught on pretty well in my community, but I want to see it catch on more in the general left. And I think ContraPoints did a good job of explaining this in her video about cancel culture. When I call someone a woke scold, what I mean by that is... Actually, let me just give the definition of woke scold from my view. A woke scold is somebody who disguises abusive or antagonistic behavior under woke rhetoric so they can victimize somebody and harass them, but shield themselves from criticism by masquerading as though they are only trying to criticize bigoted or problematic behavior. That is what I mean when I say woke scold. I've gotten a lot of criticism for that, right? Now, one of the biggest woke scolds that I've criticized quite a bit over the years, over the last year or so, it's been like 9 months. One of the biggest woke scolds that I've, criticized, and who has had a lot of negative things to say about me, is a trans streamer by the name of Izzybear713. You can see I debated her here 9 months ago, and the argument that we were having was on whether or not genital preferences on their own are transphobic. She took the position that if you prefer vagina over penis, and you're like a straight dude, and you wouldn't have sex with a trans woman who has a penis, then you are transphobic for that. I heavily disagree. I believe that if you still wouldn't do anything with it. I believe that, like, for example, you go to a bar, you meet a really hot woman, and you start, talking it up, and you're looking to smash, and then you're about to smash, and she says, by the way, I'm a trans woman, but I got bottom surgery. I have a vagina. And then you're like, nope, sorry, I'm just not cool with that. I think there's probably, at the very least, some underlying transphobic bias somewhere in there. Because at that point, it's not even... You can't make the argument that it's just genital preferences because the genitals are, in every aesthetic way, the same. If you're willing to jack off, then you're willing to have sex with a trans woman who has a vagina. There's no... Like, you can't make the argument like, well, it's not genuine or it's artificial. Like, yeah, fuck off. But yeah, this woman is extremely... I could tell, just based on the shit that she said about me on Twitter, the way that she talked to me during her that stream, that she was very abusive and was probably behind the scenes a really bad person. And it turns out all of my beliefs about her have been completely affirmed by a massive multi-person, collaborative, twit-longer allegation of abuse and manipulation. I have to admit, this may seem a bit morbid, but I feel very vindicated and validated by this. The fact that I've had like the burning feeling for a while that this person who I've called an abusive piece of shit, who has been using their identity as a like disabled trans person for a long time to attack me, and engage in like abusive rhetoric towards me, has now been outed as an abuser after being told that I'm wrong and I'm just a bigot and I need to stay in my lane. It feels nice. It definitely feels nice. And hey, guess what? Izzybear's not the only one. I can't talk about it because there's not enough stuff public and I wouldn't feel comfortable being the one that like exposes all of this. But there's one or two people who I would call woke scolds who I've had run-ins with in the past that I have inside information on that I know, because that inside information, are very abusive, very bad people in private. One of them is somebody that I'm pretty sure many of you may be fans of or may be very nice to. And I can't talk about it because the people who've had negative interactions with them don't want it to be public. Not yet. So it's up to them whether or not they want to make that public. But yeah. Just want to make it clear. Izzybear is not a one-off. There will be many more Wokescolds like Izzybear in the future that get outed as abusers behind the scenes. I know of a couple from behind the scenes info, and I'm sure there are others that I don't even know about. Destiny, right? No. I said Wokescolds, not... Destiny is not a Wokescold, okay? Vivian? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Vivian ends up being one of these people that got accused of this kind of shit. But no. Listen, stop trying to look into it, okay? I'm not going to say who I'm talking about, okay? However, this is a very long twit longer. I threw it into a text-to-speech reader earlier today, and I listened to the entire thing while I was playing some Assassin's Creed, and I read over basically all of it. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and summarize everything in this twit longer. If you want to read it for yourselves, I'll go ahead and drop the links here. I also want to mention that the person who posted this twit longer is somebody who is also engaged in very similar, if not the same behavior that Izzybear has engaged in towards me. So I like the person who's made these allegations is also a piece of shit. And if I'm being honest, I wouldn't be surprised if this situation wasn't as one-sided as it's made out here. I would imagine that there was a cycle of abuse happening in this entire relationship where the person who posted this, who's like one of the main victims of the abuse, I think it's Mudgy is the person. I may be wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if they were engaging in abusive behavior towards Izzybear and Izzybear was engaging in abusive behavior back. Because if you read this twit longer, I want to make this so clear right now. These people are unbelievably dysfunctional. Like every single interaction that they have dealing with the smallest things in their lives are catastrophic to them. I cannot imagine being as fragile as the people involved in this drama. It is actually fucking wild. Don't get me wrong. Izzybear engaged in absolutely abusive behavior towards them, but like high key. Go ahead and read this. It's not even having to do anything with their disability, by the way. It has nothing to do with their disability. Just go ahead and read over it, and you'll find that there's like a complete inability to deal with any of these situations like adults, okay? There's a difference between having a disability that prevents you from acting normally in certain situations, having getting triggered from some stimulus or whatever, and being incapable of dealing with a disagreement like an adult. There's a difference there, okay? I am not of the belief that just because somebody has a disability, it makes them unable to act like an adult in most cases. Yeah, Chud Logic went into a little bit more detail, but I definitely want to talk about this as well. Okay. Let me go ahead and summarize this entire twit longer, okay? I dropped the links, right? I dropped the links? Yeah, I dropped the links in chat. Good. You guys can go read them for yourselves if you want to hear all the details behind it. So, this is basically what happened. Izzybear essentially ran a mutual aid commune called Unicorn House or some shit like that. It had unicorn in it. And the idea behind this mutual aid thing was to invite a shit ton of disabled, LGBT, mostly trans people that were like in a really bad place in life to live there. They would all help each other out, contribute monetarily to keeping the place going, and it was like a commune. Everyone got what they needed. Everyone contributed to keeping the place going. It was a group effort. And there were like over 10 people or something like that, all part of this little like commune thing. Now I want to make it clear that is a very noble idea. That sounds pretty nice. It does. That sounds like a really nice thing to do. I do think there are a lot of people out there that would jump on the opportunity to be a part of that in an instant because they're in a really bad situation. But unfortunately, if you have even 5 seconds of real world experience, you'll find that meeting up with a lot of, and I might get canceled for saying this, but when you have a house with a bunch of people that met on the internet who all have very difficult, very tenuous social skills, may have certain disabilities that affect their ability to discuss disagreements and stuff like that. When you all meet from the internet and decide to live with each other, there can be some problems, which is what happened. Oh, Riley Grace or Strong rated me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. And that's exactly what happened in this scenario. Yeah, terminally online is a good word for it, right? So pretty quickly after everybody moved in with Izzybear, they realized that Izzybear had a tendency to steal money. She would extort other members of their household for money and then spend it on things that were not for everybody. For example, I think there was a meme that perfectly encapsulated this. Where's the... I posted it on Twitter. There's a perfect meme that encapsulates the... this meme is about the situation, by the way. For example, the house needed a furnace because it got really cold. It was wintertime, and they lived in the north where it got cold, and the house had no heating. So they all need to put money together in order to buy a furnace so they could heat the house for all these people living in it. So Izzybear, being sort of like the leader of this whole thing, or the organizer of this whole mutual aid streamer house-like thing, basically asked everyone for money, supposed to buy a furnace, and instead, unironically, spent it on ATVs, soda, cigarettes, and Buffalo Wild Wings. So yeah, that happened. Another thing that happened, as it turns out, is that Izzybear's abuse didn't just come from manipulation, gaslighting, and just sly, snake-like tactics. It also came about in physical ways as well. Izzybear spent some of the money that was meant to go to camp funds and be used to improve the lives of everybody living in this commune. She ended up spending them on a German Shepherd, despite the fact that one of the people in the house is deathly afraid of German Shepherds because of traumatic experience that they had with one in the past in which they were bitten. So Izzybear bought a German Shepherd and adopted it and expected everyone else to take care of it. And when they said no to her, Izzybear began physically abusing the dog. She would beat the dog, she would kick the dog, she would physically assault the dog, and then brag about it and attack others in the household for not doing the same. Now, God, there's so much. Another thing that she would do is, unironically, oppression Olympics with the other people in the house. Something that she would do was she would levy her disability over the other people in the house. So something she would do is, let's say she wanted someone to do a thing that they probably wouldn't be able to do because of their disability. They would say, hey, I can't do that. I have this disability. It would keep me from doing this thing. And she would respond by saying, yeah, well, this is my disability. I'm more disabled than you are. And it just ended up being like a back and forth literal oppression Olympics when it comes to like disability, right? It also went to a sexual level too, where she demanded that two people that were in the house together. Oh yeah. Disability Olympics sounds like the plot of that one South Park episode. Izzybear pressured two of the members of the house into sleeping with her in her bed and not allowing them to sleep anywhere else. And when she found out that one of those people was asexual, she engaged in a lot of acephobia against them. So it's pretty funny that this person was not only engaging in some iffy sexual behavior, but also engaging in outright acephobia against somebody in their house, someone who's accused me of being transphobic because I don't believe that genital preferences are inherently transphobic. Yeah. And furthermore, as you can imagine, when it comes to abusers, anytime these people would try to bring any of these things up to her, she would gaslight, lie, and attack them in a ton of different ways. In fact, because I don't want to forget anything, one of the roommates that decided to remain unnamed, by the way, all these allegations aren't just coming from one person. There are, let's count how many people came together to write this twit longer with these accusations. These are like, these are not like, oh, one person basically accused Izzybear of this. This is like everybody in her life came together to accuse her of these things. Like, it is very unlikely that this entire group of people coordinated together to try to destroy Izzybear's reputation. That's very unlikely. Mudgy, who I believe is now the ex of Izzybear because of these situations. Heather and Jake, so it's actually 3 people so far. Kalia, 4 people. Max, a 5th person. Roommate 1, a 6th person. Roommate 2, a 7th person. So I believe there were more people living in the house, but this is 7 people that all came together that lived with her to make these accusations. And they all have their own sections where they all back up each other. All of their stories, like, corroborate each other. There is no, like, contradiction or anything like that. It is highly unlikely that this is some contrived effort to try to ruin Izzybear. It is very unlikely with this many people against her that that's the case. Now, in order to not forget any of the accusations being made, let's go down the list and talk about all the things that she's been accused of. Narcissistic behavior leading to triggers that made communicating progressively harder. Well, narcissistic behavior is definitely something that is pretty common among those that I call Wokescolds, so I'm not surprised. The manipulation of stating and reinforcing the need for a side-by-side leading to the purchase of it by name. Side-by-side for a side-by-side. I don't know what a side-by-side is. Is this like a house thing? I'm 21 years old. I've never owned a house. That's just not something I'm aware of. What is a side-by-side? Is that like a, wait, is that the ATV? Leading to the purchase of it in my name. Is that like a, hold on. It's like an expensive ATV. Really? Hold on. I guess we already went over the ATV thing, but I didn't know she bought it in someone else's name. Yeah, there it is. These things. Low key, though, I want that shit. That looks so cool. If I still lived in Florida, this would be a really practical vehicle to have to drive around. In the area of Florida that I lived in, there was a lot of very open area out in the middle of nowhere. It would have been really fun to drive around in one of these things. You know what? I actually drove one of these whenever I was volunteering at Wikkiwachi Springs. It was a bit more golf cart like. It wasn't as like tricked out as this, but it was the same basic thing. It wasn't a golf cart. It was more like this. It was like, I called it a Jeep back then, but now I know it was an ATV. All-terrain vehicle, I guess. Yeah. I lied about having my driver's license to the park rangers whenever I was volunteering when I was 16, and I got to drive one of these around. Granted, I never went fast than like 10 miles an hour because if you could see the area, look up Wikkiwachi Springs State Park on Google Maps, then like zoom in to like the forest around it. You can't really go too fast back there. You're driving on dirt in very tight corners and very thin sort of paths, right? Yeah, okay, yep, seems pretty in line with what Izzybear would do. The use of camp funds and other mutual aid work to make all of her choices appear as the only empathetic choice. Gaslighting about what she and others have said. Failure to accept criticism about triggering others and abusive behavior. Ableist comments directed at Max. Really funny considering this person has called me ableist more times than I can count, to the point of where I had to block her. She was one of the people that made me end up just like blocking all the Wokescolds because she would literally comment on like all of my posts saying, Stop being ableist, Xander Hall. How can you say that you're a leftist when you're this ableist? So it's pretty funny that she was ace-phobic and ableist towards multiple people in the House. Ace-phobic, obviously. Refusal to accept people's requests to adjust the volume and other aspects. So for those of you guys that don't know, many people with certain disabilities can't handle it being very loud. You know, I have ADHD. I personally can like empathize with that. Like if I'm watching a video and Lonnie's talking to me and I'm doing something, it can really overwhelm me and stress me out. So I can't imagine for people who have more severe disabilities, if there's like a really loud TV going on all the time or like a radio, how distressing that can be. And whenever you ask them to stop that, for them to refuse and be ableist towards you. Use of her disabilities as an excuse for abuse. Where have we heard this one before? Where have we heard this one before? Wokescolds using their disabilities and identity as an excuse for abuse? Wow, perfectly fits my definition for a wokescold. This is what I mean when I call someone a wokescold, okay? Anybody in the future that wants to argue that it's bad for me to use the term wokescold, these are the people that I'm referring to. Those that would engage in abusive, even the abuse they could engage in could even be ableist, transphobic, homophobic, racist, anything like that. And it could engage in that abuse and still use their disabilities and their identity as a shield against criticism or an excuse for their abusive behavior. Emotional manipulation, failure to accept boundaries set by others, general ableism, using presence to intimidate after it had been expressed that she had committed abusive behavior on other people, extreme anti-religious / spiritual comments to the point of making it feel unsafe to express religiosity / spirituality. I'm going to be honest here. This is one of those things that made me believe that like a lot of the people in this situation are absolutely pretty like fragile. Unless Izzybear was like physically intimidating people whenever they expressed any religiosity or spiritual beliefs, like that could have been the case, but it seems like it was just comments that were anti-religion that made people feel uncomfortable, and that I feel like isn't really a point against Izzybear. Maybe it's a bit rude when you know other people are religious, but I guess it's possible for someone to be ultra hostile about that, but they did say extreme. I don't know. I just wish they would have gone into a bit more detail about it. Divisive language to alienate housemates, blaming people for not feeling safe coming to her, control of finances through a combination of direct and indirect access to funds and lack of transparency about finances, so basically robbing them. Extremely defensive and counterattacking when confronted on anything. Wokescolds do that. Saying being asked to change behavior because it triggers people or makes them feel unsafe was asking her to mask at home and is unfair and harmful to her and hence can't be done. Yeah, so basically she invited people over without masks. Like people and didn't make them wear masks, didn't make them engage in COVID safety protocols and whatnot, so that made a lot of people pretty uncomfortable. That was a shitty move. All boundaries set were pressured until said boundary lowered. Hypocrisy followed by gaslighting when called out. Anti-plural ableism specifically. I don't know what plural means in this context. I assume it means when you have a plurality of disabilities. Oh, dissociative identity disorder? Is that what that means? Okay. So I guess what it seems like happened here is that, I don't know. It feels like some of the people in this house might have done some bad stuff too, because I find in a lot of situations like this, while Izzybear is definitely in the wrong, I would be willing to bet, just like I was right before about Izzybear, I'd be willing to bet that this entire household was a constant, unending cycle of toxic abuser behavior towards each other. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people in that household engaged in bad behavior, the same as Izzybear, and then used might have used their disability as an excuse. It seems like it's in line, because I know one of the people that made these made like the accusations. I know who they are. I've seen them on Twitter, and I've seen what they've said about me. They engage in super Wokescoldy abusery behavior, and I wouldn't be surprised if that extended, just like with Izzybear, past Twitter into real life. I wouldn't be surprised. Claiming some housemates are faking disability and sexuality. Xander Hall, masking is something autistic people do well to blend in. That's why it's harder to diagnose girls with autism, because they mask more than boys. Okay, I knew that. Invalidation of mental health needs of typical job-working individuals in the house, followed by emotional manipulation abuse if they did something she thought was not helpful to the house. Emotional and financial abuse directed at those setting boundaries. So this was like, she would target those that didn't want to do things that she didn't want to do. This could include like sleeping in the same bed together, shit like that. That was one of the examples brought up earlier on the Twitlonger. Manipulative language to alienate people with depression. Comparison of what she used to be able to do to what others are able to do to invalidate their inability to do something. Use of outside crises to excuse and expand her ability to make unilateral decisions. So just control freak. Manipulating people to agree to anyone she wanted to come over, be able to come over while complaining about other people, want to have people over, and continual expression of wanting cut back on other interactions. That was pretty broken up, but you know. And infantilization of all housemates who didn't grow up houseless, having gone through conversion therapy, experienced war, and other stereotypical forms of trauma. Another core tenet of Wokescoldery, my friends. Infantilization of those who grew up in a better situation than she. Wokescolds do this all of the time. They will leverage their bad and like experiences, their trauma, to defend them against abuser behavior. On top of masking their abusive behavior as just progressive critique of problematic behavior. Verbal abuse of anyone who disagreed, while gaslighting, saying she was listening, reasonable, and most rational. The minimization of others' trauma. Well, there you go. I think we've read basically enough. I highly recommend you read the whole Twitlonger. It shouldn't be hard for you guys to find. It's been spreading around quite a bit. I feel very bad for all the people that were victimized by Izzybear, even if likely behind the scenes, at least one of them is... I know one of them, the person who posted the Twitlonger behind the scenes, is like a piece of shit, and I've had to block them on Twitter for all the shit they've done. Nonetheless, I feel bad they had to go through the abuse that they did, and I have to admit, as terrible as it is, I do feel somewhat vindicated by this. It does feel good to have been saying for a very long time now that these Wokescold types exhibit textbook abuser behavior, but because there was no open verifiable evidence of my suspicions, I would get shit on for it. But now that kind of stuff is rolling out. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if in the future more stuff like this ends up happening. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the types of people that you see on Twitter constantly shit-talking people like ContraPoints. If there are any... hey, guess what? You know what I think is going to happen pretty soon? If there are any larger Wokescoldy figures that you've seen on Twitter... I don't know, attacking ContraPoints, I wouldn't be surprised if this also happens. You know who's a good example of this as well? Lily Orchard. Lily Orchard is a textbook Wokescold. I'd say she is the picture-perfect example of a Wokescold. And behind the scenes, I don't know if you know this, there are documentaries about how abusive she is to people in her private life. Physically, emotionally, mentally, all that shit. People that act like this publicly, people who do this kind of shit, are always abusing the people in their lives in private. But it's not public. But eventually, it might become public. link to one of the documentaries? Yeah, here, let's look it up. Lily Orchard abuse. Oh damn, we got one posted here on Reddit. Just look up Lily Orchard abuse. Have you seen the Final Fantasy house? No, I haven't. What is that? Oh god damn it. Chat, stop moving. What is the Final Fantasy house? Down the rabbit hole.
Filth with Sparkle Sunshine Fairy artificial sugar scent sprayed over it. What's more, Jen and Hojo would beat each other loudly and with increasing frequency behind their bedroom door as the summer continued, each time followed by noisy sex. This pattern of starvation, sleep deprivation, surveillance, and social isolation eroded the writer's will, and he began supporting them blindly.
I don't know if this is like a real thing, but it sounds pretty equitable to what's happening here. Yeah, okay. Listen, we got to finish this segment, okay? I want to make it very clear. Obviously, not everybody that's like a little bit cringy and Wokescoldy on Twitter is going to be like an abuser behind the scenes or whatever, but you'll find the most vitriolic examples of people like this are absolutely probably, like, I'm not going to say that you should do anything about it, but I will say keep an eye out for anybody that they're close to in real life to post a twit longer of allegations against them, right? I think anytime soon we might end up seeing like someone close to somebody like Essence of Thought, for example, making a big twit longer post about abuse that they faced from that person. There's just a lot of trends that you can see. Hold on, I'm curious if you guys agree with me here. Do you think there are a set of trends that you can recognize from a public figure that can give you a pretty good idea that in private, this person is most likely engaging in very abusive or problematic behavior with loved ones or people they're close to in private? Oh shit, Christy Stevens, thank the tier 2 sub. Holy shit. I'll talk about this after my segment. Thank you for the tier 2 sub, Christy. I'll talk about this after I finish my segment here. Yeah, like the thing with Rachel Oates and Essence of Thought. Rachel Oates, after being harassed by Essence of Thought for quite a while, attempted suicide, and Essence of Thought the day afterwards posted an article, or it was a video. It was either an article or a video called "How White Women Silence Minorities with Their Tears." Rachel Oates is a YouTuber who was dogpiled by Essence of Thought's fans, attempted suicide, and subsequently, Essence of Thought's response was to say that they're white woman tears silencing the words of minorities. When that kind of shit is happening, you know someone is an abusive piece of shit. If you guys want to see a really good video about Essence of Thought and their abusive behavior, look up Surus's video. Look up Surus Essence of Thought. You'll find it pretty quickly. I think it's called like "This Has Gone Too Far" or "I Can't Abide This Anymore." That's the name of the video. I highly recommend that video. It's really good. Also, Surus is a good dude. You should sub to him and support him. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell icon, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. The link's in the description. You can also buy merch down in the description. On top of that, if you want to support me monetarily, you can donate or sub on the website, donate on YouTube by super chatting or hitting the join button to become a channel member. You can also buy merch, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.